How's it everyone? This is Lolcohol, and in today's video we're going to go over all the crafting changes that we saw in last night's reveal for Path of Exile 2. There are a lot of really excellent changes, and if you're a fan of more deterministic crafting methods, they have everything. We're going to have so much control over the crafting that we have, but at the same time have ground loot be more impactful. So let's go over all the changes, and we're going to start off with just the usual crafting currency. So for Path of Exile 1 players who are more familiar with the normal crafting currencies, we still have our Orbs of Transmutation and Orbs of Augmentation, Regals. So for newer players, I do have a mobalytics guide where you can read what all of these do, but you'll be able to get a white item and then upgrade it to a magic item with one mod with an Orb of Transmutation, and then use an Orb of Augmentation. There are no alterations in Path of Exile 2. From there, you'll be able to then use a Regal Orb, which will allow you to get that magic item from 2 mod to 3 mod and rare, and then you'll be able to Exalt Orb it to add even more modifiers. Now, one of the huge changes is that they have said they want Exalted Orbs to be much more common than they are in PoE 1. They said they want you to be using like 5, 6, 7, 8 Exalted Orbs in Act 1, which means that these are no longer as rare and you won't feel so scared using them. So brilliant change on that front. Being able to find an item on the ground that might have like 2 or 3 good mods, and then you maybe hit it with a couple of Exalts or maybe a Chaos Orb that adds and removes a modifier, you're going to be much more engaged with your own items that you find on the ground, and things that you find on the ground that are marginally good, that could be incredible if you get a bit lucky with crafting, is just, it makes everything you pick up and see on the ground just far more interesting. But it gets much, much better than that. In another layer of determinism, items are going to be able to have sockets in PoE 2, but not the same kinds of sockets that we saw in PoE 1. So now, sockets will be allowed to be socketed with Ezomite runes. These are similar to Diablo 2's gems, where they are runes with predetermined mods. Like, let's say if you put this rune in a body armor, it will give you 10 cold resistance. If you put it in a weapon, it'll give you 6 to 10 cold damage. So this is another layer of determinism where you have a socket on an item, you need cold res, and then you just pop that right in there, and then you have what you need. This is essentially an alternative to the crafting bench system. However, this will not take up space on your item slots. It'll be instead placed as like an enchantment on top of the existing modifiers on the item. So you could have a rare item with 6 modifiers and sockets, and then pop in a couple of runes. So as we know now, body armors have up to 2 sockets, two-handed weapons have up to 2 sockets too, and then your other armor slots will also have 1 socket each. So there's a lot of control over your gear on that front. Go for a transmute, alt, regal, exalt, slam, and then chuck in a couple of runes, and you can have a very, very well crafted item that is useful during the campaign. You will also be able to salvage socketed items that you find to get shards, which then can be transformed into Artificer's Orbs, which then can be used to add sockets onto items that do not have them. So if you do have a good item and it doesn't have a socket, you can very easily add one to it to then further control the modifiers that you get on that item. And then on top of that, you'll be able to salvage items with quality to get whetstones and scraps to further improve the quality of your weapons and armor. For new players, quality essentially improves the value of the modifiers on items. So if you increase the quality of a body armor, it will provide increased armor, for example, or on a weapon, it'll mean that it hits harder. And again, this is another layer of stuff on the ground. It matters because, hey, that has sockets. I need an Artificer's Orb. I'm going to pick up a whole lot of them, salvage them, and then get my Artificer's Orb to then apply this socket to this item that I really like. But it gets even better than that. Essences are back in Path of Exile 2. So instead of the way they worked in PoE 1, which was that it would roll a rare item with a guaranteed modifier, and then all the other ones would be random, Instead, what it does, you'll find lower level essences. They will upgrade a normal item to a magic item with a specific mod of a mod class. So for example, it'll say something like upgrades a normal item to a magic item with a life modifier. So you might find a nice base, find an essence, hit it, get a nice tier of life, and then you augment it, and then you might regal it. Or there is a higher tier of essence, which allows you to upgrade a magic item to a rare item with a mod of a specific mod class. So you might say, I need fire resistance and life. So you get a fire essence, which is like, okay, cool. This will add fire resistance or a fire mod. And then you say, okay, I also want life. And then you'll use a life essence. Then you at least have 2 modifiers on it that you want. And from there are more crafting methods. We'll get into it, don't worry. But there is more levels of determinism on that front. And next, the most brilliant solution to metacrafting that I just didn't see coming. I was wondering, how are they going to have metacrafting in Path of Exile 2 if there isn't a crafting bench and there aren't orbs of scouring? And they've figured it out. So in PoE 2, you're going to be able to find things called omens, which will then affect the way currency works on your items. So while you have one of these omens in your inventory, it will say something like, the next orb of annulment you use on an item will remove a suffix, very specific, or will add a prefix. I assume there will be other things like the next orb of chaos can only remove a prefix and add a prefix, but again, levels of control over your gear. We have the low level control, which is the things like your runes, and then also your essences, presumably. Maybe those will only be in endgame maps, but then later on, you get these omens, and that's where you get the full control, where you're like, okay, I have to remove a suffix. I'm going to use my omen, annul off a suffix, and then add on another one. Maybe there will be omens that are like the next exalted orb you use will add a life modifier. I wouldn't be surprised if that was the case. This is going to have a very interesting impact on the economy. So currently in PoE 1, we trade in Chaos Orbs and Divine Orbs. And the reason we do is because those have very obvious sinks. Our Chaos Orb sinks are on things like the crafting bench and the map device. So there's a very obvious need for Chaos Orbs, and then there's a very obvious use for them where they are being removed from the pool, and then people need them, so then they trade with them. Same thing with Divine Orbs. Divine Orbs currently are used for very high-end metacrafting, so top-level players will consume thousands of Divine Orbs, and they always need them. So they have a value, and they have a sink in that they are being used for crafting and like added and then depleted from the economy. However, what is this going to look like for PoE 2? What is the obvious sink for which item? Like, are exalts going to come back in fashion and be the new default trading currency? I am predicting exalted orbs will replace chaos orbs in terms of that like low level-ish currency. But then when it comes to like the high value, rarer currency that becomes like, you want to buy that 10 div item, what is the equivalent in PoE 2? And that's where I'm not sure. Something I'm wondering about in terms of something that has a very obvious sink are the new maps, which are called, I think, waystones. Those will be used frequently. I wonder if they are not common enough, we're going to start seeing people trading in like 10 tier 16 waystones instead of 10 divines. Or maybe there will be a very specific omen that people use a lot, like your annulment orb doesn't remove a suffix, it removes a prefix. Maybe that'll be, it's very uncertain, and that's so exciting. It's so exciting that we're going to go into this and the economy is going to be in absolute shambles until we figure it out. So all of these changes, brilliant. I know a lot of people wanted to know what I thought about it. I'm curious what you think about it. Let me know in the comments. Are you happy with all of these crafting changes? Do you feel like it's too deterministic? Do you feel like it's too simplified compared to PoE 1? I will just say I'm very glad. Gone are the days of sitting in your hideout, spamming thousands of alterations to get that one mod, and then auging it and not getting the right mod, and then annulling it and not annulling the right mod, and then my hands are like this because of that. It's just too much. So excellent changes. Good job, GGG. I'm gonna have a ton of other content on the channel leading up to PoE 2, and then on release, I will be streaming a bunch. Check links in the description for links to my Twitch, my Discord, my Patreon if you want to become a YouTube channel member, or if you want to check out my mobilytics guides, those will be linked in the description. Have a wonderful day, everyone. Stay safe. Catch you in the next video, and bye-bye.